Naturally, Carl was annoyed by Chase's arrogance. The corner of his mouth twitched and he motioned to his security guards to approach. The next moment, Chase found himself surrounded. Carl sneered. He would teach this idiot a lesson. At this very moment, a dozen or so people rushed into the lobby from outside the building. It turns out that Carl was more than just a restaurant manager. After rushing in, the men ran to his side and then the leader loudly asked, "What's the problem here, boss?" Carl gestured toward Chase and the men rushed to surround him. There were now 20 or so of Carl's men to Chase's 1. By anyone's standard, it wasn't a fair fight. The onlookers in the lobby shook their heads in disapproval. "It's over," someone said. "I don't think he could have taken the 5, and now there's nearly 20. Carl smiled at Chase. "I'm not someone to be messed with, and neither is my brother. Do you see how much support I have behind me?" For his part, however, Chase was still calm, his face unmoving. For all anyone knew, he could have been showing up to the building to meet an old friend for a cup of coffee. He gently took out his cell phone and placed a call. "I'd like to speak with Jeremy Stone," he said. There was a collective gasp throughout the lobby. Jeremy was the restaurant's owner and therefore Carl's immediate supervisor. He ruled Laudervale Tower as if it was his own. Jerry answered the phone and Chase said, "Your people are quite daring. I've got Carl here now who's threatening me with 20 or so of his thugs. Is this the type of business you run here, Jeremy?" On the side of the lobby, Mary laughed loudly. "Here he goes again," giggled one of her friends. "Is he pretending to know the owner of Blossom Tie now? What is it with this guy pretending to know people in high places?" Another friend was more quizzical. "I mean, I've heard that he has a 6-figure salary and there is no ordinary building. How could Chase possibly know him?" Hearing Chase's phone call, Carl let out a loud laugh. "You know Jeremy? Wow, I guess I underestimated you." Carl didn't believe that Chase had kissed the call. How could a man like him know a man like Jeremy? Carl almost felt pity for Chase in that moment. At the same time, up in his office, Jeremy was in a bad mood. It was one thing for Carl to not know who Chase was, but it was another to publicly threat him in the lobby of the building. Jeremy shuddered to think of the consequences if something were to happen to Chase. After swearing at Carl under his breath countless times, Jeremy hopped in an elevator and went down the lobby. Carl caught sight of him stepping out of the elevator. "Look, here's Mr. Stone now. Shall we see how you two know each other?" Chase was silent. "Mr. Stone," greeted Carl. "What brings you here so late?" However, Jeremy walked right past him without even saying a word and instead walked up to Chase. "Mr. Rothman," he said. "It's a pleasure to see you." Carl was both angry and confused. "Mr. Rothman? What? Who are you even talking to?" Jeremy continued to ignore him. He nodded to Chase and said, "I'm sorry, Mr. Rothman. I came down as quickly as I could." Everyone was stunned. Even Celia, who had been sitting at the couches by the front door, couldn't sit still any longer. "Mr. Rothman?" Jeremy's words hit like a stone, creating a series of cascading ripples in a still pond. Everyone in the lobby began to whisper excitedly, "Mr. Rothman." The general consensus was that Jeremy must have been mistaken. At least at Laudervale Tower, it was almost inconceivable that there'd be someone more powerful. Who was this man? Mary and her friends were shocked. They held her phones tightly as they watched the scene unfold with their mouths agape. As Celia stood up from her seat, she, too, was confused. Why was Jeremy, a billionaire and the manager of Blossom Tie, acting like a lackey to her husband? Was everything that Sasha told her before at the restaurant true? Did Chase own this building? Just how deep did her husband's family's pockets go? Of course, Carl was also shocked to hear Jeremy speak so respectfully to Chase. He walked up to him and asked, "Mr. Stone, I think you have the wrong person. You must be mistaken. Get lost, Carl, he replied. Then he added, actually, you're fired. Get your little brother and leave before I think of a worse punishment for you. Carl was completely dumbfounded. Are you feeling well? He asked. I think you might have confused me now. Just who does this man think he is? He asked, pointing at Chase. He has no right to ask you to fire me. Jeremy slowly turned so that he was face to face with Carl. First of all, I am the one who fired you. And I do have that authority, wouldn't you agree? He paused. Carl didn't say a word. He continued. Second, who do you think you are? How dare you disrespect Mr. Rothman? Apologize to him now, or firing you will be the least of your worries. Carl scratched his chin in a display of mock consideration, then finally he exploded. Do you think I'm a fool? He screamed at Jeremy. Who do you think I am? Do you see my men? He gestured at Chase and added, neither of you scare me. There's nothing you could do to me. The atmosphere was tense. Carl raised his hand, signaling to his men to be at the ready. Let them try, he thought to himself. But Jeremy was unfazed. Rather than cower, he calmly announced to the whole lobby. If anyone here dares to make a move on Mr. Rothman, I'll personally see it to you and your families become pariahs in this city. Your businesses will fail, your families will suffer, and even then, who's to say I won't destroy you in whichever town you move into next? Carl's men froze in place as if their feet were glued to the floor. Each one of them had families and loved ones whose livelihoods were now under threat of attack. Carl watched in horror. He screamed at them. Go, all of you, get them! His men didn't move. He continued to shriek. This is what I pay you. Get them! In the midst of Carl's crazed screams, Chase simply walked away. Jeremy motioned for him to stay, but there was no need. He walked up to one of Carl's men and asked, what does he usually pay you? The men remained silent, shooting confused looks at his friends for support. What did Chase want from him? When there was no answer, Chase asked, did you hear me? Mr. Walker gives us $1,500 every month. Chase tutted. 1,500? Carl tried to interject. It's none of your business, he shouted. What would you know of the cost of paying a bodyguard? Ignoring him, Chase would be back to Jeremy and whispered something in his ear. Jeremy nodded and quickly took out his cell phone to make a call. Less than a minute later, the elevator door opened once again, and Jeremy's assistant walked up to Chase with a large suitcase in his hand. Open it, said Chase, nodding to the assistant. As the assistant opened the suitcase, everyone gasped. It was overflowing with cash. Chase put the suitcase on the floor and kicked it over towards the man, who opened and closed his mouth, unable to speak. Chase said coldly, I take it we're done here? The man nodded. He picked up the suitcase. Chase saw how eager they all were to get their hands on it. He said to the man, Then why don't you take your friends here and sort out the distribution elsewhere? The men were quick to listen. They all nodded deeply and sounded off an apology to Chase. Then, as suddenly as they had arrived, the 20 or so men disappeared without a trace. Carl remained behind, alone. He put his head in his hands. What had just happened? Who was this man? And what was the extent of his power?
Wait, that's not the end. You've just had a free taste. Now get the full story on the Pocket FM app, link in description. Check out our next video and playlist, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.